Good afternoon. This is Debbie West on Lost Knowledge. I have my co-host on, Michael Hathaway. Are you there?
I am here, Deb. Good afternoon.
Good, good, good. Okay, so our guest today is a friend of mine who I met recently. Her name is Mindy Miralia, and she holds a BS in biology from the University of Houston and an MBA in finance from the University of Colorado. In her successful international business career, she was the first American female executive to work for a British bank in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, that I think oversaw at least 9 countries in the Middle East, and she was one of the highest women in the financial sector overseas. She lobbied for Congress, for U.S. business interests abroad, and so on and so on. But she is also a certified spiritual counselor and has done a lot of work in the spiritual realms and as a counselor and intuitive and so on. She just put out her first book called The Hero in Heroin, and it's a book written about her son's long struggle with heroin, which resulted in his tragic suicide, but then has gone on to lead to some amazing and a very amazing healing journey, which she discusses in the book. So, Mindy, welcome to Lost Knowledge.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mindy. Nice to meet you on the air.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
So, Mindy, we're so excited to talk a little bit about the book itself, The Hero in Heroin, and a little bit about Micah and what he taught you. Can you sort of describe a little bit about your relationship with him and how he was able then to, I guess, to reach you after his death?
Well, yes, Debbie, I'd be delighted to do that. First of all, I have to say that during life, he was my buddy, despite the fact that he did start this journey of addiction doing his first experience or experiment, however you want to put it, with pot at around age 15. So we juggled and struggled with that for probably about 15 years. And as a mom who did her best to learn everything there could be learned about addiction and drugs and healing and alternative modalities of healing, on this realm I had to put boundaries up because he got very bad, I'd say, in terms of his addiction. And they can really pull you too much. It gets to the point where they're going to die or you're going to die, if you understand what I mean. So at his death, he was very mad and angry with me because I had kept very firm boundaries with him in his latest relapse. So I had no idea that he would do what he did. He had come through so many other, what I want to call very seriously dark times, so it was quite shocking when he did take his life. And I asked clearly at the moment that I found out about it if there was any part of him that was stuck here in this plane. And I heard no, it was not, he was not stuck. And it looked to me, from what I could see, was that he just took off like a very free spirit, and he was like in sparkles, like a bunch of sparkles, and just off he went. So it was about 3 weeks later, maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, after we had done his memorial service, and when his children were here at my home in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a couple of his friends had brought their children over. All the kids were playing out front in the driveway. I got up to come into the house to go to the restroom. There was no one else in the house, so I thought. But as I walked in, I could feel an eerie feeling. Not bad, not good, just different air that was in the room. And about halfway to the restroom, directly in front of me, an object just dropped right in front of my face. And it bounced and bounced and bounced. And I screamed out, "I knew you were still around. I know it's you, but I can't reach you. I can't touch you. I can't communicate with you. So I dove for the object, got to it, and discovered that it was a bead, about a 9-millimeter bead, like a gold bead that would be on a necklace. And I just shook my head as I picked it up, knowing full well he was trying to get in touch with me. And I just took the bead, walked over to the altar that I had made in the living room, taped the bead to the top of his ashes. So that was the beginning of how he started to reach out.
That's amazing. So then he was able to contact you and communicate with you. Is that right?
Oh, yes. He was able to communicate with me over time. It got to the point where I knew he was right there, right with me. I may not notice him right away, but in one of the instances, it were as if he were sitting up on the sink while I was working with clipping flowers and pulling dead leaves off and things like that. He was just right there. And so it was fascinating when there was a recognition of me realizing that he was there. It was just an elation that went on his side and my side too, because we both know each other's energy very well.
So what do you think the biggest message was, or was there one when he was communicating with you? Was there something that he felt was really important that you understand?
Well, there were many. I mean, there were many messages. He reached out not only just to me, but to others, and then some of their messages, I think it was more him just trying to, reach to them and either, I want to say, make amends or communicate with friends in some way. As for me, with the messages that he brought back, one of them in particular that he said to me was, "Mom, always remember that every soul is responsible for its own journey, and it affects every other being on earth and elsewhere. You have no idea how far things you do on this side go. Always view another's journey with respect and honor, not fear, anger, or pity. Few realize that sadness and pity are disrespectful to the soul." And when he gave me that message, it was from the highest aspect of the son that I knew. It was from the wise, the wisdom, from the knowing, and from his, I want to call it clearing and cleansing after he died and was on the other side and could return with messages that powerful. Mm-hmm. Just even the way he communicated them. They were so profound I had to write them down at that moment because I wouldn't have remembered them if I hadn't. So that was one in particular that I thought was very strong.
In the book, I know Micah was an incredible writer of poetry and different things, starting from a very young age, was able to communicate in writing some of his thoughts and ideas. And one of the poems in the book came out at me a little bit, and it's called "Stuck in This Realm." Mm-hmm. Because you then started after his death to be able to communicate through the realms. Do you think at some point in his lifetime here on Earth he did feel stuck?
I totally felt that. I felt from, I guess at some point during this journey of addiction and during all the work that he did to help himself, the things that I did to help myself and to help him, I do feel that he was stuck in this realm in some way. I always believed and felt that he was a much more evolved soul than me, if you know what I mean. I feel like he came in, or we agreed to come into this life together this time, for him to really bring me forward fast. And the love, the pure unconditional love that takes to do that when on this side of the realm and on this side of the veil, it feels so harmful and tragic. But in reality, it is a depth of love that is only found at the soul level.
Mm-hmm. So were you able then to understand more about, I guess, not just this lifetime with Micah, but maybe other lifetimes that had meaning for both of your soul journeys?
Yes. As a matter of fact, while both of us were on this side, one day just while driving down the road on my way home from work, I had just passed by the post office, and it's only a landmark that I remember because this was so profound for me. I had an overwhelming sadness come over me, and I just started crying for what appeared to be no reason. I got home to my house, went inside, sat down in my green recliner, and as if I were watching a television show, I saw a past life that he and I had had together where we were both Native American. We were healers, shaman, medicine men, whatever you want to call it. We were in a cave. I was the elder of the two. We were both male. He was like a protege of mine, I guess. We had on these, I don't even know what you call them, but they're like the hats that look like a buffalo skin or something that had the fur on them with the little horns that stood out on the sides. It was very clear, like I said, just like watching television. So as I assessed what that meant, and it didn't happen instantly, it happened over time, I came to realize that we were both a medicine men in a past life, and we had lost our tribe to plague and to disease, and we weren't used to that. We were used to being able to help our people. And in this case, we could not. So that transcended in some way in this life in what I believe his quest for doing drugs was partly to find answers as a result of that life. You might call it to increase his consciousness, to do it a way we may have done back then by doing some kind of herb to learn something new. And for me, this life was to continue the healing journey that I've done and had numerous lifetimes, and to learn not to carry the responsibility for others. And I really believe that that is why he came back with this message that he did, to say that each soul is responsible for its own journey, because it was a lesson that both of us needed to get.
Sounds like you were shamans back there. That sounds like a headgear that might have been for, the medicine men or the people that had that ability to shapeshift, to travel, to leave their body.
It could be. I don't know. I was watching a show on television the other night, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's the headgear that we wore. And it wasn't like the feathers and things that you see, like a chief where the feathers go way down in the back. That was not it. It was a very distinctively different kind of hat. It was like some kind of thing that was on our heads with little horns sticking out the sides. So who knows, Michael?
So, Mindy, prior to that, had you had any other experiences with past lives, or had you, sort of thought about using that as a way to heal people?
No, I had not. And as a matter of fact, I had teachers along the way that said, Mindy, there's no need for you to go looking for those kinds of things. There's no need to just go, kicking cans. If there is something that is important or relevant to your journey this time, it will reveal itself. So I've trusted that, and I've allowed it to show up if or when I needed it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it had profound meaning to you because of what the communication you were getting then.
Exactly. That the communication and of an incredible sadness. My son writes in some of his writings about carrying or feeling guilt. And for me, I carried a sadness, like a blanket of a sadness that didn't feel like anything I was fully aware of, which took more work and more understanding and getting into that deep cellular memory to realize that the sadness I was carrying was still related to the loss of my people and my tribe, but also having the ability to forgive the race and the people, the Europeans, that brought diseases and plagues to us that we had never had before. Mm-hmm. So I never thought about that. That was nothing that ever crossed my mind in any way.
Let me ask this question, if I may. Lots of times we call karma from the past and the balances of life to life. Have you ever given thought that part of what you're doing now is working with some of those souls that you thought you had lost past in the past life, that perhaps they're on Earth now, and through your son on the other side and you on this side, you're helping make a connection to take them into the further?
Well, I feel that way, and oftentimes there will be, I call them energies, they're bodies of consciousness. They will just show up. And they're not beings or people, so to speak, that I know. Perhaps I did in some other life, but I don't know them today. But they will show up for various reasons. Some of these have been deceased relatives that have shown up that I am aware of, and then others are not. And when they present, there's usually it feels like more of an energetic transfer than there is a conversation or a dialogue about what's going on. And often I will not do that unless there is something they specifically are asking me for. But I do feel like there is some, it's like my husband calls me a traffic cop. He said, Mindy, it's like you stand in the invisible space and you're directing people this way, that way, turn left down there, go 3 streets and turn right. And in some ways it feels that way, except it's in an invisible space. It's just an energetic realm where this kind of work occurs.
Let me add one thing, Deb, and then I'll turn back over to you. I've had the feeling since a near-death experience back 20 plus years ago that I go around with pieces of life maps for people. And so I just pass them on and they take them and use them any way they want. Then I'm on to my next assignment.
That resonates. I can very clearly see that, because it's kind of like what I call it. It's an in and an out. And like you're saying, it could be just a piece of a puzzle.
You don't own it. You're just a part of it.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's like being a thread in a quilt.
Absolutely right. Okay, Deb.
Well, so just kind of staying on that same piece of information, the spiritual awareness that you bring to others, Mindy. So during, sort of during the whole process of writing your book and all of the work that you've done with so many people to help them, anything from crossing over to self-healing and things like that, and just speaking out, just you speaking out on a lot of these matters. Can you talk a little bit about that sort of ability to be multidimensional, which is what we call sort of existing in both realms, so that you understand that you're in the physical realm, you're in the 3D realm of Earth, but you also can easily, cross over into the other realms and communicate with your higher beings and that integrate that into the work you're doing here?
Yes, I'll speak to that. It's been something that I've done and been able to do for longer than I would like to say. But for much of my life, obviously, I believed and felt that everybody was doing this. I believe everybody can do this, but I don't believe many people believe they can do it, or if they believe, they don't allow themselves to do it. And so for me, much of my life, I just kept quiet, so to speak, about my gifts. I used them, but I was quiet about them. And I really feel that with my son's death, it was a catalyst to say to myself, not be so quiet about them, because he worked incredibly hard as a soul and a spirit to get back to me, to give me messages, to give me guidance on how to help other people, that I thought, well, okay, yes, I've been a finance girl for a long time, but I'm also as much spiritual, interdimensional, multidimensional, transdimensional, however you want to say it, as I am anything else. And so it's been a matter of just being able to step into it, and it's getting easier. I can honestly say it's getting a lot easier. Things I used to do, and part of my discipline in my prayers and my meditations and work that I did seemed to take longer. Now it happens just like instantaneously, and I don't have to be physically sitting down in a meditation or in what I would call my zone. It shows up. So I'm in and out of it all day, every day.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah, and so as the Earth shifts into this new fifth dimensional reality, much of what we're doing, and Michael and I often talk about this, is, converting from analog to digital, and that allows us then to operate in this multidimensional sphere where, time is no longer linear, and our understanding of our, completeness of our soul participation in this incarnation and others can expand beyond, what we thought was reality in the past. So, as you're talking about this to people, what has been the reaction? I know that some people would prefer not to go into this topic, but what have you found generally to be the response?
Receptivity. It's been a little bit surprising, but I have had people come up to me and say, "Thank you for talking about this." I've had students from the schools that I spoke to when I was in Texas saying, "We really didn't know what to expect when we heard that you would be coming to talk about your book. But thank you for talking about the things that other people just don't want to talk about." So yes. I would say it's been received. I think I know there are places where it may not be as well received, but for the most part, so far, it has been.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're waking up. We're reaching a different level of maturity, and as a species, and becoming more cosmic citizens, which means we do have to understand all the other realms of consciousness and all the other beings and all of the other dimensions. And these are new terms for a lot of people. So you've been living it for so long. This might seem like silly questions, but how do you see these other realms sort of laying out? Like, as you're discussing it, are there realms that we should stay away from? Are there realms where the benevolent beings are, or more likely to be? How do you navigate through the realms?
Just like I would navigate here on the earth. There are some parts of town I choose not to drive into, so I won't. Others I want to explore. And I would say that would be my advice and guidance for anybody, because at this point, we are learning more about what we don't know. And in that process, we are growing. It's like a baby that has learned to crawl, but it hasn't quite yet learned to stand up. Yep, it's going to fall over. There will be some things that show up. So I believe that is...
We're going to be right back for the second part of the show. Exciting show, talking to Mindy.
Hey, everyone. It's Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle. If you have questions about your past lives or future plans...
We're back on Lost Knowledge, and we're talking to Mindy Miralia about her book, The Hero and Heroin. And Mindy, I want to go back to the subject of heroin for a minute. I know that there is an epidemic of heroin addiction and I wanted to let you have a minute just to talk about that problem that we're facing, and sort of what lessons you can share that you have learned about heroin addiction, and also if you could just also comment on the dangers of the addictive person also letting negative energies into their fields possibly.
Okay, gladly. The last part about people letting negative energies into their field, I have found that most people are ignorant to that. For those of us that understand the workings of the invisible world, we understand the power of that. We understand the power of the invisible and the influence of the invisible on us, but no one is teaching that to others. Young people are not being taught anything about that, and other people, as far as addiction and heroin addiction goes, there is no one cookie cutter type. It transcends all individuals, age groups, socioeconomic buckets. So there's no one thing other than I really feel people looking for an escape in some way, people looking to experiment, people unaware of the consciousness bodies, the beings, the humans that may be addicted at time of death, and they don't fully go on. They get stuck. They get hung in what I want to call the earth realm, and so they're in a terrible state of confusion. There is no such thing as time in that realm, like we have a time here. And so they'll look for something that's familiar. Often another addict or a young person having some of the same depressive thoughts and things of that, and they'll literally attach to the other person's energy field. This is an area that I am very passionate about talking about and about teaching others, especially as it relates to drugs. It can even be a negative thought form, for that matter, Debbie and Michael, and to the listening audience, that it's just a lot that we need to share, and I say we, people like me who have come to learn and understand this, with those that don't understand it yet, and help them to open up to these invisible influences on what they're doing in their daily lives. So that would be about some of the energies, I would say. As far as the drug itself, heroin is one of, if not the most addictive drug, and the addictive nature of it has to do with its connection to the cellular, I call it like the docking stations of like an airport, and those neurotransmitters and the feelings and the sensations that say there's not an airplane at one of those gates out there, but you take heroin and all of a sudden all the gates get filled with heroin that knocks out other things that might be there that the person would be dealing with in terms of what I would call the normal chemistry and brain chemistry of the body. And my son's writings, I feel, are very profound because he was a very highly intellectual person when it came to book knowledge, and he would sit down and write exactly what was going on in his body, with his brain, with his cellular structure at any time when he took the drugs, and he'd write it down as it was occurring. So I think it's important for people to learn just say no is not going to cut it when we're dealing with these kinds of things. And the younger people that start doing these drugs of this power, their brains aren't fully formed. Their frontal lobes are not fully developed. And as a young one, unknowingly, but feeling and thinking that they're grown up, breaking away from parents and wanting to experiment and live life on their own, so to speak. They just are not quite aware of how harmful that can be very long term, because once it gets in there, it's like they're hooked. If they can get away from it, they're very lucky and blessed to be able to get away from it, I want to say chemically and neurochemically, before it really overtakes the body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the
Mindy,
spirit attachments...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When the spirit attachments are in the energy field, and I call them spirit attachments, they're invisible, but that's something that I can see oftentimes, is when there is another consciousness in the field of, like, I'll use my son, for example. Well, what happens is that the influence of the non-physical, which is not in a body, it doesn't carry a chemistry, it does carry a consciousness, and it does carry a personality, but it doesn't carry the chemistry, like the chemistry of chemical effect on a physical body. So this is one of the ways that the human physical body gets, I would say, entrenched with another being that it doesn't even know it is connected to or entrenched with.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely does. And there is help for that. Mindy can help with that, and there's others that that people can seek out to to provide some treatment for that. So, but very scary. And I've raised 4 kids myself, and one of the things is that doesn't heroin go by other names because it's a very strong opiate, but I think it also carries other names out there.
It's got other names. It goes by black tar, smack. Some of those are older names. Black tar is how it looks. It looks very tarry, black and tarry. Smack, I can't remember the rest of them, but there's a litany of other names.
Beware, because I know that even at the high schools, some of the names that come out are very strong drugs, very strong chemicals, and maybe have a different name to them. But be very aware of what.
Well, another one that's very strong right now is the synthetic marijuana, and I don't know if it has a particular name or not, but it is highly, highly addictive, and it is all chemically made. It's not from a plant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so beware the drug usage. One of the other topics I wanted to bring up, Mindy, and Michael might want to weigh in on this, is your visits to John of God. Michael is friends and has a constant relationship with the niece of John of God. What's her name, Michael?
Good.
Is he there, Michael?
Yeah, I am here. I was just putting, because I got somebody running a chainsaw, not me, but my neighbor, so I didn't want to play it too loud. Rose. And Rose has her uncle's gifts that she's had since a child. And she's moved to this country back 20-some-odd years ago.
Yeah, and so, Mindy, you made some visits there. Can you talk about that and what sort of, how that impacted your healing process?
Actually, my son is the one that got me to John of God. My son got me there from the other side. And it was pretty fascinating in the way that occurred, because my son showed up to me while I was doing a journey, and he wanted to take me to the place where he got help. So he showed me a place of just brilliance. It was almost a blinding brilliance, where there were crystalline beings that all had blue eyes. And they didn't speak with a mouth. They spoke telepathically. And they were trying to show me and teach me how to do the work from a lineage, like removing a problem or genetics or energetics through time and space for a lineage. And what they said to me was, it is likened to John of God. And I was like, what? John of God? And I knew of John of God. I'd been aware of John of God for years as a healer, but I had never been called to go there. So, little to say, I was on a plane a couple of months later to go down there. And when I arrived, I saw that the whole place of Abidjanya sits on a giant crystal. When I met John of God, when I went into the casa, the place was blue and white. The pictures on the wall of Mary, of Jesus, of the saints, and some of the entities that are part of the phalanges that do the healing work were blue. So I thought, oh my gosh, my son has brought me here to help me to learn, to understand what he was doing on that side and me on this side. So when I had the opportunity to go before John of God, of course, had to go with a translator because he only speaks Portuguese. He took my hand, and I had a ring on my right hand that I had bought specifically in honor of my son's life. His eyes lock on my eyes, and I have to tell you, his eyes change depending on what entity is coming through him. You can very definitely see a difference in his face, his mannerisms with the face, the color of his eyes, and everything. So he held my hand and he rubbed the ring. And I could feel, as he was doing that everything about me was known, down to how much money I had in my bank account. It didn't matter if it was another life, if it was a spiritual issue, an emotional issue, physical. I could feel him seeing my son, literally doing a scan of everything about me in the matter of a nanosecond. So the translator was saying to him in Portuguese that I was asking for help to heal a lineage of addiction and bring the healing for addiction to a new level on this planet. And as the translator was just barely finishing getting those words out, Medium Joao looked directly at me in my eyes and in English said, I will help you. And, of course, I was in a bit of a state of shock, and the translator looked at him, looked at me, and then finished up. And the translator said, Mindy, I will talk to you after the morning session is over. I'll meet you outside. So that was the beginning of the healing journey of the lineage in our family that it took a few years, several years, I guess, to go through, because one has to step to the plate in their own healing process. There's a lot of people that want to heal, but they don't do what they're asked to do to be able to heal. So it is work. It's not just a free ride. And so that happened with me and with my son on the other side and with others in the lineage. So I owe so much of the knowledge that I received, the how-tos that I received, meeting a new group of beings that are in a discarnate form that are there to help work with me and work with other members of my family on the other side is what I learned and what I got at John of God. And it was a place where no one sees anything. Their beings aren't visible. They're invisible, but they're very present.
Are you familiar with the crystal bed that came to him?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, I've been in those crystal beds many times.
Yes, Rose brings hers up when she comes for a visit, and it's
they're powerful.
People have profound results. Yes, they have profound results. How have you found that what you're doing with this and your enlightenment, and with your ability to see, which is really incredible, how have you seen the effects of working with your son on the other side and yourself, your message affecting other people, like clearing negative energy?
Well, I've
Can you
seen
see
it as
that?
hope. I've seen it as hopeful. I've seen it as a lot of education, quite frankly, which is a lot of what I'm doing is educating people, because oftentimes when these, let me say, the clearings or the releasements occur, sometimes the person that attachment has been with is so accustomed to how they feel with that attachment, they'll bring it right back. And so the person has to be strong enough, have a deep enough understanding and a high enough consciousness level to want to be able to make that shift. So I see that much of what I'm doing is educational in this way, and I do work with several people that will actually get in there, roll up their sleeves, and do some of the clearing and reversals to help. It's a process.
It sounds like quite a process, and you're doing incredible work with your team.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is. I do have a team. It's not just me. I've got a tremendous team. Most of them are invisible.
So,
How do you do with ego? Go ahead, Deb.
oh no,
I'm
I'm sorry.
too much.
I'm sorry?
Just wondering, so that when you deal with these, what you call the invisible realms, and I just have to ask this because what we talk to here is we talk to a lot of people that refer to all of the other beings as being from other planets and being what we call extraterrestrials or ETs, because they exist in other realms. They exist maybe in non-physical bodies. They may be etheric in nature. They may be orbs of intelligent energy, like a light or something like that. But the one thing that they have in common is that they can change their molecular structure and transform into these light waves at will. They can move at tremendous speeds. They can communicate telepathically and transmit large amounts of data, and that they're trying to get Earth people used to seeing them and interacting with them. Would you have some comment about the dialogue around the word extraterrestrial as compared to, energy being?
Well, I guess extraterrestrial would just mean it is not on the Earth. However, when we think of angels and things like that, I don't think of them necessarily being on the Earth. I think it's just a huge kaleidoscope, actually, of different types of beings that are out there. And do they live on Earth? Maybe some of them do live on Earth. Maybe some of them live or reside off the Earth, and not even in what I would call like the sphere of the Earth, as in the field around the Earth. Perhaps they're somewhere else. My mind is wide open to, not that I can fully understand every single kind of being that's out there, but my experience has been in contacting or communicating with some of these beings that feel to me far, far away. Now, are they really? I couldn't tell you. They could be right beside me, but maybe they are very highly evolved and I just can't communicate with them. I don't know. But I do believe that, yes, that we are influenced by a lot of that information, and I feel like that we do interact in ways that probably the average person doesn't even realize. I hope they show up someday in my life. Tell you the truth, I'd love to see us as a race be able to accept another race right here. Why not?
Yeah, and one of the things that conversation, kind of the natural segue, is if we are to interact with the cosmic realms and become part of a larger, broader perspective in terms of the reality of life, maybe not the way we know it, but life all throughout the universes, that we need to grow up, put down our weapons, and enter into this new reality in a peaceful way. Would you say that the beings you're working with, would support that as a way to, sort of come out and greet us as if we could become, better citizens?
Well, my take on that is, the beings that I work with are an incredibly beneficial group of beings. They are around to help humans, and help humans in many, many, many different ways. Now, my experience of humans and of being a human is anything that we don't know about, that we have fear about, we want to destroy. We don't really necessarily just open up to a what if. So I really feel that much of the energies that we are experiencing and that we are going through, especially after 2012 and everyone thinking the world was going to end in 2012, I feel like what ended was an old way, and that we do have an opportunity to move into more of an era of peace. And I think a lot of that just takes us being able to continue doing these things like we are doing in this kind of work, and continuing to work with these other beings who, some of them are, quite frankly, they're humans that have gone on. Others may be some other type of energy form. But I feel like as long as we take the highest of the high, and we want to be, and we strive to be as close to the Creator and the vibration of the Creator as possible, we won't mess up.
Well said. Oh my gosh, that is tremendous. That is tremendous. So thank you so much. The book, The Hero and Heroine, A Mother and Son's Journey on Both Sides of the Veil. Check Mindy out on her website. Also, she's got some great information there, and reach out to her on any of these subjects moving forward. So thank you, Mindy. I can't wait till you come back to Houston. We can meet in person. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie and Michael.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
The Secret Society Revealed. With your host, Joseph Atwell, author of Caesar's Messiah, The Roman Conspiracy to Invent Jesus, and Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, the groundbreaking discoveries that gives us a new understanding of how governments and elites use mind control to manipulate their subjects. Join Mr. Atwell as he lifts the veils of deceptions of our modern world. Mondays, 12 noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, on Revolution Radio.